This is May 22nd, and you are listening to another episode of the Twoonie Bin. My name's Kay.
My name's Gray. We have a fantastic show for you this week. We're going to start off with another update of the Fort McMurray wildfire situation. From there, we're going to go to a few more local topics as well. Ontario immunization laws and Elbowgate being one of them.
And we're also going to be talking about Yukon infrastructure budget and how they're going to have to start spending deficit money, as well as Ontario cutting out natural gas and a marijuana update as well with the legalization.
But first, we're going to go right into Fort McMurray today, and we are going to say finally that the government has a timeline for when they're going to let people back into Fort McMurray. The timeline, assuming that everything goes to plan and that there's no more wildfire threats, is June the 1st. And that's for the downtown areas and the areas that aren't affected by the fire. They're hoping to have everybody back by June 15th, and that would be ending with the most heavily damaged areas. They're going to have people let back in, but who knows how they're going to stay. That's all we've got for there, but that's some still very good news on that front. Kay, what do we got next?
So next we are going to talk about Ontario immunization laws. So currently what's going to be happening is parents who in Ontario who decide to not vaccinate their children, and it's time for them to go into public school on that, and if they refuse to vaccinate, they will have to start attending some evidence-based courses.
Thank God.
In the science of vaccination and how vaccination works, why they work, and how they do not cause autism, because
that's been debunked long ago.
That has been, but people still see it on the internet, and of course a lot of people think whatever they read on the internet is true. So
in our case, yes it is, because we do our research, but not everywhere is like that, folks.
Yeah, so currently right now there's a third of Canadian parents wrongly believe that vaccinations.
A third, really?
A third.
That's every 3 houses. That's terrible.
That is horrible. So
Wow.
they believe that vaccines cause diseases like autism.
What about preventing diseases like polio and measles?
Well, in their mind, with anti-vaxxers, if we all vaccinate and they decide not to vaccinate, then they should also be protected. But that's not the way it works with herd immunity.
Not at all.
Because we all need to be vaccinated to reduce that risk. Of course, vaccinations doesn't mean that you won't be able to get polio or measles or mumps or whatever else that you get vaccinations for. Mm-hmm. But it does reduce the risk significantly.
Yeah.
Enough for vaccinations to make sense there. So it's Health Minister Eric Hoskins that has put this bill up on the table. It hasn't been passed yet, but by the looks of it, it is going to be passed because of the fact that it does make a lot of sense. And I mean, if you are going to decide to not vax, then yes, attend a class and figure out exactly what kind of risks there are with not vaccinating your children.
I totally agree with that now. There are still ways you can get around that. In addition, there's also what's been a long-standing scenario where if you have a religious exemption, absolutely, or for instance, maybe you're allergic to the vaccine, that's another reason. But
that's the more reason that if you do not have a reason to not vaccinate, that's a legit reason, mm-hmm. then you vaccinate. I know that my children here are vaccinated.
Good.
I'm vaccinated.
I expected nothing less from you. I really did.
I've actually been vaccinated twice because I lost my public health record. So.
Well, there we go. You are safe.
But the reason why there are so many people that decide not to vaccinate is because that a few years ago there, Jenny McCarthy and Robert De Niro and many other celebrities there have decided to not vaccinate their children. So a lot of people look towards celebrities like that and decide not to vaccinate. So that's one of the reasons also why people don't vaccinate, because they're like, well, if the celebrities don't, then why should I? Now, choosing to vaccinate your children protects them from disease and also helps protect those who cannot be vaccinated due to the legit reasons against diseases as well. Like I said, with herd immunity there. We all need to kind of be vaccinated to significantly reduce the risk.
That's right.
I mean, the majority of vaccinations nowadays are 90% or above effective at reducing the amount of cases that we see every year of measles, mumps, polio, and stuff like that, as well as meningitis. And of course, as science moves forward too, we will be coming out with more vaccinations there as well. Just like a few years ago, we came out with the chickenpox one, and now we have shingles vaccinations there as well.
Right.
So, I mean, I love this idea.
Me too, absolutely.
Educate before you decide to put your child in harm, especially when it comes to children.
Absolutely. They're a precious resource. We have to do this properly. This isn't about the possibility of autism. This has been debunked long ago. This is about your kid's safety. This is about them not getting polio or giving you polio or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is something that's, I'm sure, played out right across the country. It's not just an Ontario issue. It's just a matter of just getting it all on the same page.
Yeah.
And
Ontario's starting it. I'm pretty sure that once the bill has been passed, which it looks like right now it will be, that the other provinces and territories will also be following it in our footsteps.
Thank God. That's all I can say.
So what's going on there with Elbowgate? What's Elbowgate?
First off, I'd like to say congratulations to Canada as a nation. We have finally joined the club of having what could be considered physical violence on the floor of the legislature in front of a live TV audience. It's finally our turn. We did it. We made it. We've joined the ranks of several European nations. We've joined the ranks of, I believe, South Korea. Yep, that's us. We did it. And here's how it started. A procedural vote on Wednesday nearly ended in a fight. This is according to the Washington Post. Who am I?
Huffington Post?
The Huffington Post. According to the Huffington Post. So Justin Trudeau sees the Conservative Party whip on the floor being blocked by a bunch of New Democratic Party MPs, and he's basically trying to get this Conservative MP who wants to go through the blockade. So in Justin Trudeau style, I can only say that because he's the only one who's ever done this. Goes through, grabs the MP, and tries to pull him through the line of NDP members of Parliament. And in the process, elbows a female MP from the New Democratic Party. I can't talk today, folks. I apologize. Elbows her in the chest. Now, this is not the first time this MP. The MP's name is, for a bit, Ruth Ellen Brasseau. This isn't her first time on TV. She is, or in the news, she is the same one who won the election in Quebec and was in Las Vegas at the time. So this is the same one.
What?
Yes, she was not planning on winning this election. Well, not this election, the previous one. Back in 2011, she ran. Didn't live in the riding. I don't know if she'd ever been, but she didn't live there. She didn't campaign. She booked a trip to Vegas for a period of time before the election was called, so she didn't really have any way of canceling it because she couldn't cancel it.
Yeah.
She ended up winning. And this is the same woman. So this is not the first time that she's been in the news for something a little bit notable. And I've looked at all this because Justin Trudeau's apologized 3 times, and Ms. Brosseau is saying she's getting a lot of hate mail and a lot of messages about how she's saying she's a weakling and all sort of things. So my question is, which is bigger news? The Prime Minister elbowing an MP or the MP being elbowed? I don't know what it is anymore. And I have a couple more questions. Like, if this were a man being elbowed by the incident, what would the reaction be? Would it be the same? I don't know. What do you think, Kay?
I think, honestly, if it was a man, they would have brushed it off, unless they were conservative.
Yeah, second on that.
I mean, let's be honest. If this happened to anybody in the Conservative Party, there'd be charges laid and everything. It would go all out.
Agreed. And if it was a Conservative member doing that, guess what? Oh, it wasn't us. Oh, don't worry. Normal. Everybody does this. So there's that. There's a lot of people were saying online too. It's like, I get elbowed in the chest 3 times a day taking the train in Toronto. Like, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to
It
myself,
happens.
it happens. It's not. I'm not saying that she wasn't hit in the chest with an elbow, or for that matter, the Prime Minister's elbow by accident. I'm saying people get hit by elbows all the time. This is just
especially when you have a large crowd like that in such a confined space.
And not only that, but in the middle of the House of Commons floor, that's if you were blocking somebody from doing their job in any other scenario, you'd be shown the door. That's how it works. And here's what they were blocking. They were blocking the Liberal government's decision to shut down debate on a bill and keep, for the next 5 weeks, debate on bills short. This particular bill that they're talking about is Bill C-14. It's the Doctor-Assisted Dying Bill. Now, this is the bill that was supposed to be introduced, past all the readings in the House, given approval by the Senate, and then given royal assent by the Governor General to go into law before June the 6th. That's the deadline that the Supreme Court of Canada has given the government to come up with an assisted dying law. That day comes and goes, they can't make another law, and it goes to the provinces. And now, instead of a uniform law right across the country, every province gets to make up their own rules, if this isn't done by June 6th. So we have a government that wants to make sure there's uniform amounts of rules. We have an opposition party that really doesn't want to have Canadians like with coast-to-coast uniform rules when it comes to this sort of thing. And instead of that being talked about, we're talking about somebody being elbowed in the chest.
Yeah,
all I can say is this is a distraction, and we have to keep thinking about what are we doing here, why are we doing it, and I'm not with the NDP on this one. If the NDP, because we know Thomas Mulcair went after Justin Trudeau. He was not impressed, and called Justin Trudeau pathetic in the House of Commons, actually, as well. I'm with Justin Trudeau on this one.
And I mean, he did make a public statement there too,
apologizing. He made 3 public statements.
3?
3 of them. 2 of them afterwards, the night of, and then one the next day. I think it's a done matter.
I saw the one that he made actually in the House of Commons. Yeah. That's pretty brave for Prime Minister or anybody in the House of Commons to be able to stand up in front of everybody and be like, look, I made a mistake.
Can I also just add that I'm not totally surprised at this? The Trudeau family has produced one other Prime Minister, that being Pierre Trudeau, back in the 70s. And if you do any research, it doesn't even matter how much you do, just any research, you will figure out pretty quickly that this guy is somebody who just goes and does what he wants, doesn't matter what. The words, "just watch me," when he was talking about calling in the army in the FLQ crisis in Quebec, is a big example for me. Doing a pirouette behind the Queen in the photograph. Yep, just doing what he wants. This is totally normal for the Trudeaus. I'm surprised people are shocked at this. Another thing I suggest you do, there's lots of stories comparing the 2 Trudeaus online. I found one in the Huffington Post. There was 75 photos, or 85 actually, of Pierre Trudeau and all the silly things he did. Look at them all and think of Justin Trudeau in all of them. You will probably think of Justin Trudeau in virtually all of them, except maybe the hunting ones.
Now, talking about photos, I did see the most hilarious meme floating around on Facebook there, where it's a London, Ontario, they called it a sports source.
Okay. Oh, yes, yes, I saw this too.
I forget the name
London
of the store.
London Source
there.
for Sports.
Yes.
I saw this too. Because they are now stocking of Justin Trudeau approved elbow pads. Yep, London Source for Sports has them. I don't know the address, but they have them. It's shared all over the place right now. I think it's brilliant. Whoever came up with that gets a raise.
So our next story here on the agenda is about the Yukon funding that they received for infrastructure from the government, and how they're not going to be able to afford it, and they're going to have to start going into deficit spending and might even possibly go into debt. So far here, the government has come up with a $60 billion budget for the whole country in order to be able to spend, with $11.9 billion to be spent in the next 5 years on public transit, green and social infrastructure for the whole country. Now, what Yukon has been given out of this is $250 million in federal funds to be spent over the next 10 years. And because of the fact that in other places, in all the provinces, I should say, they have this system where municipal government pays a third of the funding for infrastructure, then the provincial budget spends a third, and then the federal budget spends a third. The North doesn't have that option because of the fact of how scarce they are.
Yeah, the territories have been given a 75-25 split scenario, so they pay 25% of the cost, and the feds kick in all of the rest.
Now, with that being said as well, the Yukon has been told to be very frivolous with the amount of funding that they have.
I think very frugal.
Very frugal.
Frivolous is what they're saying some of it's been spent on. For instance, they're talking of a new high school being built in Whitehorse, and then a $147 million continuing care center in addition. And this is for a population of 37,000 people for the whole territory.
And they're also looking at as well, which they have asked for additional funding to be able to. They have also asked for additional funding for Coffee Casino and Selwyn mine sites. Those are all mine sites, by the way. Because right now the Yukon is responsible for spending about $112 million on building roads out towards those mine sites, where this would create jobs for them as well as help them to be able to bring in some money for the province, so they would be able to afford this 25% that they have arranged with the government back in 2008.
Yes.
Now, as well, right now, they are looking at a projected $30 billion deficit.
That's a lot for 37,000 people.
Yes.
Now, luckily, their population isn't declining. Their population's gone up from about 32,000 people 10 years ago, but it's still a lot for such a small population to stomach.
Now, the Yukon government there usually spends about 25 and 35 million each year on infrastructure.
No, it spends a little more than that, 35 million.
Okay,
that's our correction notice. So.
So yeah, so it is 35
over 35 million, yeah, which is, it's a lot. It's about $10,000. No, it's $10,000 per person.
And the fact that they were only given the 251 million, and then the on top of the what was it here, the 51 million there as well to be able to spend, and that 251 million that they received from the government's got to last for 10 years. I mean, this is going to make a huge impact on the province itself. And it's not like you can say no to schools. If you need a school, you need to open up a school.
That's right. And I'm mistaken. It's only about $1,000 per person. But nonetheless, if you need a school, you need a school. If you need a hospital, you need a hospital.
If you need roads in order to have better jobs for everybody, then you need to build roads.
And just because you're a territory of Canada doesn't mean you're insignificant. You still are part of Canada. It's that simple. We need to keep this taken care of. We need to make sure that people there are healthy. We need to make sure that they can get around. We can make sure that they're contributing to the Canadian economy as a whole.
Exactly. And I mean, we don't hear a lot about the territories much in the news these days, but I mean, something this significant does have a huge impact. I mean, yes, they are up there,
but they're very much a part of Canada. The same way Newfoundland is, the same way Prince Edward Island is, the same way Saskatchewan is, the same way British Columbia is.
So, I mean, I totally agree with Yukon here with their whole asking for the government for additional funds. I'm pretty sure that they do have additional funds somewhere that they can kind of rearrange stuff and bring it over in that. I mean...
it's not going to be an easy road or an easy time.
No, and I mean with this budget too, 10 years. 10 years. And they're like, yeah, we have $60 billion for the whole country for the next 5 years. We're going to give you this, spend it in 10. We can give
the Yukon a little bit more out of the $60 billion pie.
We definitely could.
Yeah.
So our next story there, Gray, what are you going to discuss with us next?
We are going to talk a little bit about a story that broke Monday morning. The Globe and Mail had an exclusive report on how Ontario plans on dealing with carbon emissions and climate change. How's this for a plan? Let's phase out natural gas usage in 76% of Ontario's homes and replace it with an ever-increasingly costly electricity. Yes.
Didn't they just raise hydro rates here in Ontario as well?
Last month, it gets better. They're saying that this is going to be, it's not just that. They're going to get more electric cars on the road. They're going to have 12% of all new vehicles be electric cars. And you can get geothermal energy as well. But my money is on they're going to put electric baseboards everywhere that they can.
Now, geothermal, that's like having your solar panels, right?
Geothermal is where they take a pipe and they stick it deep into the ground and they take water and they circulate that water through that deep pipe. Now, on the surface, the temperatures can fluctuate quite wildly based on the weather, but underground temperatures are pretty constant, 15 or so degrees Celsius. And with that water coming up, then heating with other methods doesn't become anywhere near as costly. So that's what's happening there. Now, this has created a little bit of alarm, the whole we're shutting down natural gas, for a couple of reasons. First off, it was just last year the Ontario government was talking about how they wanted to expand natural gas, announcing a $230 million plan to expand natural gas. It was a move that they said would lower prices, help businesses, and create jobs. And they said they would do this because natural gas is significantly less expensive than electric or oil heating. We have natural gas pipe, that we're paying for in the ground. It has to still be paid for no matter what, whether we use it or not. So even though all this infrastructure is nowhere near the end of its life cycle, if it's abandoned, we still have to pay for it. It doesn't matter. Now, the government has since backed away, saying they're not going to be forcing anyone to stop using natural gas, but they're not denying it. They're not flat out saying we're going to take that out of the plan. So, because this is just a leaked draft document, we can't say anything for sure, but the fact that's in there is kind of alarming. I know people who are in the furnace business. This is kind of a big deal for them. I don't know what to say with this other than I hope to God they have a plan that makes a little more sense than this one. Because while it might make sense to some people, natural gas, it's kind of important to the Alberta economy. It's nation building. We have the electricity, but we can't afford to use the electricity.
Now, how do we get our electricity?
Basically, there's the legacy sites. There's hydroelectric, which is through water. There's nuclear facilities, and there's more recently solar and wind. And those are cropping up all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I do know if you own your home and you were to install solar panels on your home, you do get a tax break on that, as well as save money on your hydro bills there as well.
It's actually a feed-in tariff. So the government pays you X amount of money for whatever you feed into the grid, and then you buy from the grid at regular rates.
Yeah.
That's how that works, and that's costing a lot of money.
So, my say on this, wouldn't it make much more sense to get rid of our nuclear power plants and start replacing them with something a little bit greener instead of going right into it and saying, no, we're going to...
I'm going to say no to that, because nuclear power plants, for as big and potentially dangerous as they are also fairly safe. This isn't Chernobyl, this isn't Fukushima. Both of those happened with different designs of reactors than we use, and in different locations. For instance, Fukushima would have been fine if they, had kind of built it uphill a little bit more, and it wasn't swamped with seawater. And Chernobyl wouldn't have happened if they didn't try to push the reactor to its limits and be stupid like that. But in Soviet Russia, whatever. All I can say is these extra solar and wind projects, they cost us money and we don't need them. We have a surplus of electricity. We have to stop adding capacity. You can't justify adding capacity by shutting out natural gas. It's not a good idea. That's all I have to say about that.
No, and especially when you just rose our hydro rates. I'm
They
lucky.
say they're going to subsidize it, but I don't believe that for a second. They moved away from subsidizing electricity. I remember when it was 4.3 cents a kilowatt hour in Ontario. And now the lowest you can pay is just about double that.
So I know lately we have been like jumping on this Justin Trudeau bandwagon
It's
a lot.
easy to do. It's Trudeau mania, don't you know?
And they're liberals. But saying that, Kathleen Wynne is also a liberal, and ever since she came into power, schools have been having protests for teacher unions and a bunch of other stuff, like our hydro rates going up through the roof, that people, single families, like, you're gonna have to start working 2-3 jobs per household in order to afford.
Start working? Ha! I'm already there. But no, here's the thing. Like, the federal liberals and the provincial liberals are a very different game. This is evidenced by Kathleen Wynne campaigning for Justin Trudeau as much as possible. She wanted to look like the federal liberals.
No, I mean, this is such a horrible idea. I am so for going greener, making our carbon footprint as little as possible, but there are other ways.
Can we please do it by increasing the insulation in new houses? Can we please do it by paying for retrofits to existing houses to add insulation, to become more energy efficient through the use of newer furnaces, high efficiency
Start
furnaces?
replacing your appliances, like your stove and your fridge, with energy efficient appliances.
Absolutely, whatever it takes. Like
energy efficient windows.
Yes, windows. There's all sorts of things we could be doing instead of cutting out natural gas.
Exactly.
Yeah, but baseboard heaters are cheap. Just saying. Okay, Kay, you've got one more for us today.
Yes, so our last story of the day here is an update on marijuana legalization. So, of course, we discussed approximately about 4 weeks ago.
I believe so.
Yeah, we discussed about marijuana legalization and how they plan on having that legalized next year. So there's been a medical journal that has recently come out saying about how marijuana legalization is a bad thing. Now, the authors of this medical journal here is Stephen J. Hoffman and Rujan Habibi. They claim that allowing possession of pot would violate 3 separate conventions. The conventions are the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs in 1961. And that was also amended by the 1972 protocol, the Convention of Psychotropic Substances that was released there in 1971, and then of course the United Nations Convention against illicit traffic in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances that was released in 1988. So there's this statement that they released is pretty much saying that, hey, if you are smoking marijuana here, or if we were going to legalize it, then it would go against what the UN stated back in 1988. Now, with that being said, if you listen to our first episode, we went through different countries there where they actually do have, like
That's
Colombia,
right.
pretty loose marijuana laws. So, I mean, yes, it goes against the United Nations Convention there, but as well, if we were to legalize marijuana, we wouldn't be the first country to do
That's
so.
right.
That's part of the UN. So, marijuana here is also classified as a Schedule 1 narcotic by the World Health Organization, which is also known as WHO. So, other Schedule 1 narcotics are also LSD and ecstasy, and they are considered to pose serious health risks to the public, and some are strictly regulated substances. Now, with this being said, we do have medical marijuana, so of course our ideas on marijuana is going to have to start changing with the more research we do, which I don't think that the doctors that published this really took that into consideration of all the research that's being done. Now, a statement that Hoffman made there is Canadians should care about our government following international law, because we often want other countries to follow international law. Picking and choosing which international laws to follow is hypocrisy. That does make sense. But like I said, we wouldn't be the first country to make marijuana legal.
That's right. Even in the United States, while the country itself hasn't, there are states that have.
Exactly. I mean, our ideas on marijuana is going to have to change with time, like I said, with the more research that's being done. Otherwise, why do we even have medical marijuana if it's considered to be harmful to you?
That's right.
But hey, you know what? You have severe depression, let's get you a prescription. You got cancer, let's get you a prescription. Like, there's so many things that you can have a prescription for medical marijuana for. So the conventions do allow an exception. If the treaty's provisions come into conflict with the country's domestic constitution, the country is allowed to follow its constitution. So if we make marijuana legalized and put it into our constitution, then we are to follow our constitution no matter what the UN says.
This should be easy.
Now, with that being said as well, that is within reason. You don't want to make something up saying that, hey, we're going to do a purge every year. No.
No.
Like, you want to make it realistic. But like I said, we wouldn't be the first country. In Colombia there, when we did that story 4 weeks ago, we discussed about how you can have up to, 22 grams?
I believe so, yeah.
22 grams and up to 20 plants for personal use, as long as you're not trafficking it. So, I mean, it is huge. It is very huge. Now, of course, when they wrote this journal, they are basing it on old laws there as well, going as far back as 1971, and then their most recent law that they're following there is from 1988. So, I mean, that 1988 was 27 years ago. A lot has changed since then. Now, it is clear that the most clear one is Trafficking Convention 1988, Article 3, Subsection 2. It's very clear. States are required to criminalize possession, purchase, and cultivation of narcotic drugs, and that includes marijuana. Now, that was stated by Hoffman there as well. In the medical journal, which I understand, like, you want to criminalize possession of narcotic drugs, but now with all this new information, should marijuana not be classified in a more, I wouldn't say as a class 1 narcotic, maybe a lesser class? I mean, there's so much to take into consideration.
Here's what I'm gonna say about it. It's simple. Is any country really gonna hate Canada for legalizing marijuana?
No,
I don't think so. Maybe the United States will, but that's their business. As long
they
as you
can't
don't
hate us too much.
As long as you don't bring it across the border, they're fine. As long as we have the oil, they should really shut up about it. But
they also do have 4 states that have it legalized, so why should they say much to us
they
out
can't
there
say
at all?
anything about it.
I mean, honestly, it's like Amsterdam. Everybody goes to Amsterdam because it's legalized there.
That's right.
It's becoming less legalized there now. They're starting to put on stricter rules as far as tourism goes and going there to smoke. But, I mean, this could make a big impact on our tourism.
It could.
Bring us some more money so then we can be able to send it back to Yukon. Help out with their debt problem. Maybe lessen the prices there and none of it as well.
Maybe.
They pay crazy expensive stuff for something that costs like $2 for anywhere else.
Well, really, I don't see the point of flying bottled water in and then charging $100 for it. It's kind of pointless.
Exactly.
That's just me. But yes, I believe that's it for us today. We've had a good long conversation and a great time talking, and we hope you've enjoyed being with us as much as we've enjoyed being with you today. My name's Gray.
And my name's Kay, and don't forget to press that like button and
subscribe.
Also, follow us on Twitter at ToonieBin. And check us out on Facebook as well, facebook.com/ToonieBin. Leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you.
That's it for everybody. That's it for May 22nd, 2016. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
I should make a final statement here.
One more. Okay.
Final statement. We were doing some budgeting, everybody. We are hoping to get videos going by July 10th. So please hit
We're
that
working on that
subscribe.
microphone first.
We're working on set, microphone, and everything. So until next week, everybody stay tuney.
Take care.